Well, hello, writers. Welcome to episode number 500 of Ink in Your Veins. I'm Rachael Herron. So thrilled that you are here with me on this big day, 500 episodes. And today I'm talking to Iris Beaglehole about how to do magic with your writing. And you're going to love this gorgeous chat on magic, on listening for the yes, on tuning into what you need as a writer. And it's you're going to love it. So I'm very glad that she shows up on episode number 500. I thought about doing a standalone episode for 500, but I just did the 9 things I learned from 9 years in writing. But I will say a couple of things. I was I was doing some real simple math. I've had 500 episodes, right? That means I've talked to at least 450 writers because there have been some episodes that are solo shows, and there have been a few people who have come on a couple of times. If you hear jingling, I'm wearing overalls. Sorry about that. Um, but that's not that many. So I would say it's a safe bet that I've talked to 450 writers. And honestly, they all say something completely unique and completely applicable just to them. And they all say the exact same thing, which is that we as writers simply need to write. Simply, as if it's easy. But it has to be. It's the one thing that makes us writers. And well, the other thing that makes us writers is that editor's voice in our head, the gremlin or the troll, as AJ Harper calls it, the voice that says either things like, you should be doing the dishes, you should be doing your day job, or worse, it sounds like somebody in your past or somebody that is just with you in your head that says, you can't do this, you're not worthy of this, you're not smart enough. It's been done a million times better than you are doing it right now. That also proves you're a writer. And what we learn from all of the guests who come on the show, we learn over and over and over again that that voice doesn't go away and it doesn't matter. It gets easier and easier the more writing we do to hear the voice. We don't argue with it. Remember, it gets stronger and smarter the more we argue with that voice. We just have to ignore it and say, oh, hello, voice, go sit in that chair over there while I write 500 very terrible words, while I work for 15 minutes on this, and then you can come back later. The only thing we can do with that critical voice, with that troll, is to ignore it and do the work anyway. And that's how we gently and kindly become writers. Speaking of those 15 minutes, those short writing times, I wanted to share with you something that a member of Ink Village wrote just yesterday. This is shared with permission. This person says, well, a strange thing happened yesterday. I finished this Make Sense draft, which has been a long time coming. I think I was on draft 2.5 when I put the book in a drawer and tried to write the next shiny thing. I picked it up a year later, last November, and discovered what I thought was a full draft was only really the first 2 acts of the story arc. So I started an overhaul in December with low expectations. Often I've only had 45 minutes a day to work on it. I just decided that it would take as long as it would take. Thank you to all the folks who joined the unhosted 7 a.m. writing Zoom. Your company has so helped me to keep showing up. And I trusted Rachel, who is so fond of saying that whole books can get written in 15 minutes a day. Guess what? She's right. I had to check it again this morning to make sure, but yep, done with this reimagining, first drafting overhaul. I'm a bit baffled on what to do next. I'm not sure if I need to let it sit or if I'm just going to start back in. But on orders from some writing friends who have witnessed this whole long process, I am posting the fact of it here as a form of celebration. This they posted over in the Celebration Square channel in our Slack, and we celebrated with them because that's what we do over in Ink Village, and that's what we do on the show. We celebrate the wins. We celebrate this drive and desire to keep coming back to the page. As somebody on the show said recently, and I'm very bad at remembering who said what over 500 episodes, but they said that your work is just waiting for you. Your work is waiting for you. Right now, because I am talking and not writing, my work is writing for me. I wish my work was writing for me, but sometimes it does feel like that. My work is waiting for me. When I wrote for my literal 15 minutes earlier today, it's all I could spare today. I set a timer for 15 minutes and I was irritated, and my own editor voice said, you won't get anything done in 15 minutes. You won't even get your head screwed on straight in 15 minutes. And I ignored it. and I open the draft and I put on the particular sound right now that's really helping me write, which is the medieval sounds, the medieval library sounds on mynoise.net. Oh, can't recommend it enough. Um, and I just wrote for 15 minutes and I got 500 really fun words that did not exist before then. We keep showing up. We keep doing a little bit of work. It doesn't take a lot. And every writer that I talk to on this show says something like that. And you know what? I never get tired of hearing it in different people's voices. And 500 episodes later, I have no intention of stopping or slowing down. I enjoy this so much, and I'm so glad that you are here. All right, before we get into Iris's interview, I do want to answer a Patreon mini coach question. You can always find that over at patreon.com/Rachel. This is from Stephanie, and these are three questions about writing conferences. Here's the first one. I am attending a writing conference this summer in California and looking forward to it. I've attended two conferences in the past, both enjoyable experiences, but I've always kept mostly to myself. While I do enjoy my alone time, I've decided I want to branch out and take advantage of being in a space with other writers, maybe even find a writing friend or two. Do you have any tips for a tried and true introvert about how to do such a thing? It seems scary and gives me serious back in high school vibes, but I know it has the potential to be wonderful if I can stop my palms from sweating. I love this. I am a tried and true introvert. My palms sweat as well. I feel this. The nice thing about writing conferences is that while they give us that back in high school feeling, they are not high school. They are filled with writers who are weirdo introverts, just like me. And I find that encouraging. It does not help with the nerves, but it helps with the fear that I'm going to be, laughed out of the room, like I sometimes was in high school. The thing that I have found that is great to do at conferences, and I found this just recently by going to that conference in the Philippines, which wasn't writing, but it worked. And I use this at writing conferences. I use this any place where I go where I don't know other people. Instead of trying to do small talk or, so where are you from? Those kind of things. I abandon that and say how I'm actually feeling. Usually, I spend a little bit of time with just me and my drink, wandering around, looking at people and judging them because that's what human beings do. And I'm judging them charitably. But what I'm looking for is the person who looks kind and interesting and fun and funny. I am not looking for the person who is mouth sour and they're upset about the cheese board, right? I am avoiding that person. I'm finding the one or two people who are talking already, or maybe they're standing alone. And I decide just based on vibes alone, that's enough, that I want to try to talk to them. And it's so hard. But then I go up and I say something like, I'm so nervous, I feel like I could die. My palms are so sweaty. I don't even want to shake yours, but my name is Rachel, and I don't know anyone here, and I don't know what I'm doing. And let them respond. And let me think about this honestly. 7 times out of 10, the person will say, oh my God, me too. My first time here was awful. Come stand by us. Where are you from? But then it's not a small talk when they say, where are you from? Because you've already bonded over this introvert fear. The more honest we are about how we feel, the better. It is so nice to find other people like us and stand on the edge of the room. And then sometimes when you're standing with those people, you see somebody else who's standing alone and you bring them in and you say, are you new here too? It really, really works. The reason I said 7 out of 10 is that 3 out of the 10 times you are met kindly and somebody says, oh, hi, I'm Julie. And she doesn't say anything about like, oh, I get nervous too. She just goes, hi. And then you speak really uncomfortably for 45 seconds and then you walk away with your cheeks red and you just want to go to your hotel room and never come out again. But we can survive those. And the odds are much greater, especially at a writers' conference, that they will respond in kind with, oh, yeah, this is so hard. Come talk to us. So give it a shot. The 7 out of 10 makes those other three uncomfortable. And we wouldn't want to talk to those people anyway. The reason those conversations are stilted is because they're boring and we don't want to hang out with them. Those are the duds. We don't want to hang out. They're not duds. I have this theory in life that even people who all speak, and I'm going to pull this one just because I'm speaking English right now, people who speak English as a first language We don't all share a common language. We know the people that we bond with immediately because we speak the same language. And then there are people in our lives who we can't get into the rhythm with. It's just never going to happen. I have a friend, I will call her Emily because I can't think of an Emily that I know personally. She's awesome and she's so smart and she writes award-winning books. And when we get together, I am so bored. We cannot connect. And here's what I think. I think that she has a group of friends, and I know this for a fact because I know some of her friends and I feel the same way about them. I think that they get together and they say, you know what's so weird is Rachel is so nice, but I cannot talk to her. I am so bored. We don't speak the same language. I let those Emily and her friends find each other, and then I find the Rachel people, the people who like Rachel over here. And those are the ones I'm looking for. Probably you and I, because you're listening to this podcast, so you resonate with the way I talk. We would like each other at a conference. You and me, Stephanie, we would immediately bond and start talking about, not about the other people in the room, but saying, oh, do we want to go talk to them? Who's that? They look cool. They look fun. Let's go introduce ourselves over there because we speak a common language. And those are the people you're looking for. The 3 out of 10 who, oh, it feels weird, they're probably very nice. They're just not our people. So please be brave and do it. And let me know how it goes. Next question, shorter question. At this conference, there will be opportunities to do various editor and agent pitches. I've never done one before, but I finally feel like my novel is in a place where I would like to try. Any big do's or don'ts? Nope, just do it. The internet is full of good information on, working on your log line, making sure that you can do the elevator pitch in X number of sentences. Do that. You do not need to memorize it. You can have note cards and your hand can be shaking. The one thing I really like to remember is that everyone doing these things, except for the editors and agents, and maybe even them, everyone else is really nervous. It is okay to have your heart in your throat and be unable to speak around a lump when that agent says very kindly, tell me about your book. And you go, they're used to writers freaking out when they are asked that question. Agents and editors are sometimes paid at conferences to score query letters or to read and edit sample chapters, but not usually for pitches. They are doing pitches because they want to find the next book and writer to represent and or publish. They are there because they want something from us, and it is our books. You do not have to say it well. You don't have to produce any good writing. That's a nice thing. What they want to know, they are not going to judge your shoes, your clothes, your hair, your bag. They're going to judge your story idea. If they like the sound of your story idea, they'll ask for a partial or a full manuscript, and you are under no obligation to get that to them the next week. Sure, you can if it's ready to go, but you are in revision, so it won't be ready to go. It is absolutely fine to say, oh gosh, I can't wait to send that to you. It'll probably be 6 months or whatever it is. They will not be waiting around, but they will be glad to get it when it comes. They're very busy people. And that's how they're going to judge you next. They're going to judge the story idea. Is it for me? If you pitch them a horror pirate novel and they're just not into horror pirate novels, they're not going to ask for it. Or if they have 17 horror pirate novels that they're trying to bring to press or to sell to editors, they're not going to ask to see your book. But if it is compelling to them, they will ask. And then they'll judge your writing when it lands on their desk. And then you've got that foot in the door, and then maybe the conversation happens and they want to represent you. But there's nothing to lose in that moment. All they want to know is about your story idea. And you love your story idea. And you'll say it, and then you will leave. And then I guess my only other piece of advice is don't beat yourself up for anything that happens or how you feel you sounded when you did it. I remember I used to leave pitches and think every single word that came out of my mouth was idiotic. And that's not true. That's the editor's voice in our heads trying to tell us not to do that again because it was scary and the editor doesn't like scary things. But you did it. You do it and you can do it. You're not going to get it wrong. Good luck. Tell me how it goes. And then the last question is, do you have any thoughts about how I can get the most out of my novel workshop at the conference? The workshop is being led by a writer I really admire, and I really want to come prepared to learn a lot about how to improve my manuscript. For context, I'm about 4 chapters into my second draft. So this is something that maybe you won't see recommended, but what I recommend to do is to pick an hour or so, maybe two, but probably an hour is enough in the week after the conference that you will sit down with your notes that you take at that workshop or during the whole conference. What happens is we go to writers' conferences, we hear so many incredible things. We are going to change the world, change our business, change our writing, and then we get home and we're tired and we say, I'll look at those notes later. Um, if I don't have something booked in my calendar to sit down and look at the notes and make them into actionable steps I can take next, they are not done. They just don't pop into my head when I need them 7 months later and go, oh, you know what I learned at that conference? I'm going to do this now. Absolutely not. I need to absorb and figure out where what I've learned will fit in my writing life and put that into the places that it will make sense to me at the time. If I learn something about writing the novel that will apply to me in late revision, which you are not in yet, but if this writer says something about late revision, then you'll put it at the back of your manuscript. You'll put a little note that says, go look at email from blank date that you sent to yourself about what to do in late revision. Take that hour and place things where they will be findable for you and usable for you later. That's the biggest piece of advice I could give. Take copious notes, take lots of notes, and then have a method to organize the madness. And I say this from absolute experience. I'm still waiting to alchemize the information that I learned at the last RWNZ I went to in August, and it is May. So, yeah, if we don't do it, we don't do it. So I encourage you to do it. Thank you so much for asking these questions. Thank you so much for being a mini coaching person on Patreon. You can always go look at rachelherron.com slash, no, that's wrong. Patreon.com slash Rachel without my last name. A reminder that you can always check out Ink Village, rachelherron.com slash Ink Village. It's pretty amazing. And if you want to be on my writer's email list of encouragement, please go join it if you're not already on that, rachelherron.com/write. And now let's jump into the interview with Iris. Here is her bio. Iris Beaglehole is the enchanting author of the spellbinding Myrtlewood Mysteries series. As a self-identified druid, witch, and aspiring astrologer, Iris weaves magic into her stories and takes readers on a thrilling journey to the mystical town of Myrtlewood. While she's not crafting her fantastical stories, Iris can be found sipping tea with her feline companions and tending to her herb garden in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being here for episode 500. Here's to several thousand more. I'm so glad that you're here. Please enjoy this interview. Here we go. Well, I could not be more pleased to welcome my friend to the show. Will you please share your name and pronouns with us?
Iris Beaglehole, she, her.
Welcome to the show. We are talking not too far away physically from each other. You are not so far from me in Aotearoa. And
Yeah.
it's so nice to have you on the show. Okay, so the reason, one of the main reasons I wanted you on the show is number one, you're a friend of mine. Number two, you are amazingly prolific. You get a lot done.
Thank you.
Can you please tell us how you do it? Because not only do you write these series, which are very popular and very beautiful, but you and I were chatting a while ago and you said, oh, I've had this idea for a book on magic. And then you just wrote it and it's huge. And
It's huge.
you know that I can't wait to read that. So how do you actually get the writing done? When and where? Products, whatever, whatever. Tell us everything.
Well, my managing my creative process is a lot about flow and eliminating things that might get in the way. So I don't force
Mm,
myself to write because
hmm
that is sort of like pushing against a brick wall. So if I'm feeling like I'm wanting to write, and it's not quite happening, I kind of question what do I actually need? And I prioritize rest. Rest is incredibly productive if you can if you can get it.
hmm
Um, I go for a lot of walks. I spend time in hot water.
What kind of hot water? Where are you finding the hot water? Is it like
You know,
bathtub?
yeah, bathtub, hot tub,
Yep. Yep.
shower, anything that's available. And sometimes cold water is good too. I belong to a gym that has a sauna and a pool, so I
Oh,
alternate.
nice.
try to do the things to put because I feel like what a lot of my writing process happens below the conscious level of the mind. So it's happening kind of like under the ground, the seeds are planted and you need to let them germinate. You can't kind of keep messing with them. And
Hmm.
so it's about how do I have that time for the composting and the germination and the processing, the internal processing so that it will grow. And yeah, that's that's part and I follow the path of least resistance. So I write a lot by dictation,
Hmm.
um, because I can get into a really good flow when I'm walking. So I use an app and I'll talk, it's like I'm having a phone conversation. I hold my phone and I'll get into the scene.
I've always thought that is the most genius way to go. Okay, so let me go nitty gritty with this too. Are you doing because the thing that always tossed me out of it was I would get stuck doing the punctuation and open
Oh
quote,
no.
close quote. Do you just like you basically stream of consciousness as if it were already perfectly written on the page? You're not worrying about punctuation, and then you go back and edit that all in. Is that what you do?
Yeah, yeah, because you can't edit. You editing and creative flow are two very different brain
Yeah,
processes. I try to keep the editing out of the way so that I can get into flow, and I don't even worry about mistakes in the prose unless I'm like making a note. Go back and fix that.
right.
I just try to get into as much of a flow as possible so that it all kind of because it often feels like creativity comes through you.
Yeah. Well, on the good days it doesn't. Other days
Yes.
you're trying to pull it out by a rope. Yeah.
Yes, well, that's what I try to do is prioritize that as much as I possibly can.
So then when you are doing the writing on the dictation, how much are you a plotter versus just a going with the flow? Do you know what's going to happen that day when you are writing, or does it surprise you?
It surprises me. I think every book is different. Every book is a different challenge. Every series is a whole different challenge.
Yeah.
And so it's like I'm always trying to figure out how do I write this book? What does this book need? And sometimes I'm not quite sure and I have to let it rest for a little bit. And I often find that then something will happen in my life where I'll learn something or I'll see something and or I'll, inspiration will come to me and then I'll know how to finish it. But if I'm starting to feel frustrated, like I'm really trying to do something and it's not working, I don't push against that. I just kind of go, okay, that's not where the energy is. Where is the path of least resistance right now? Maybe it's having a rest, maybe it's focusing on something different for a while.
You make it sound so beautiful and easy, and I just want to do exactly that for the rest of my writing life. I really believe that the best work I've ever done has been when I am following that path of least resistance. What do you do when or if you're up against a deadline and you are struggling with the book or the series?
Well, I try to give myself um, plenty of time because anxiety actually makes it worse
Yeah.
for me often. So I
Hmm.
try to minimize deadlines, but I do sometimes have deadlines where, say, I've put a book on pre-order for a while, knowing that I've got all the ideas for it. I just need to
Hmm.
make them work, and I should have enough time to do it. And if things start to get a bit tense, I still have to do exactly the same thing that I would
Yeah.
normally do, and realize that the tension, the anxiety, and the frustration is counter to writing, and
Hmm.
so I do those things that help me to calm down and be grounded and spend some time in nature. I walk by the sea a lot, all of that kind of. I listen
Mm.
to meditations. I all the sorts of things that get me into a good state, and I focus on the project and hold it really gently,
Mm.
rather than trying to squeeze something out of it. Hold it really gently and figure out, like, or sort of intuit what is the exciting thing about that will make me want to go into it, that will make that energy, like that connection there.
Hmm.
And yeah, and go in. I mean, and the whole idea is to make it into a beautiful, gentle process because the other way doesn't work for me. And I discovered that when I was studying, when I was writing a big thesis. It was like I couldn't get it to work. And then I realized the only way to was to understand my creative process, which is really honoring that unconscious processing time. I call it the void. Like
Tell
I
me more
need to
about
go
the
and be
void.
in the void. Yeah, I need to go and be in the void. I'll have a bath and listen to like ambient music that's got no
Hmm.
words or anything, and go for walks. And I feel like that void is like where creativity comes from.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like so many of us, and I'm including myself in this, understand and respect the void, but also will go to great lengths to avoid it, for fear of what
Because
might
it's
happen inside it.
yeah, it's terrifying. The
Yeah.
void is terrifying. And this is a very magical
Yeah.
way of talking about writing, but that's how
That's,
I think about it.
yeah.
Yeah. And if you look at mythology and you look at traditions, there are these powerful goddesses of the underworld, of the void. And there's like the journey, the descent into the underworld is a process of going into the unknown and shedding layers of protection, and it's terrifying. And I think every new creative project is terrifying, and that's because you're going on an adventure and you're walking in the dark. And a lot of
Mm,
people talk about, a lot of writers use darkness metaphors for writing, journeying into darkness. You don't actually know what's ahead of you. And I'm obviously not a great plotter, if that's my process. But even if I do plot out a whole novel, because some novels, it's like it needs, I've got all these ideas and I need to put them in order. It always takes me on a different adventure,
mhm,
even if a lot of those things are the case. I often get this fear
mhm.
when I'm encountering, especially a new project. I get this fear and I have this resistance, and then I have to remember that is part of the process. It's facing that unknown. That's where the magic is.
I
Yeah.
think you just described all of writing, like in those few words. That is perfect. And I love this idea of shedding the layers of protection, because I think so many of us hold so tightly to this idea that we have that we want to pull off. And and it is fear-based. It is protective, and it's in my own case, unwillingness to let go long enough to see what is actually there, which won't
Mm.
be what I thought it was, but it
Mm.
will be what it is supposed to be. And I
Mm.
feel like I always get to that place after a lot of struggle, and I'm wondering how I can implement some processes for this next book that I'm writing to be more like you, and to remember going into it that yes, it is an underworld journey, and oh boy, won't I find amazing things.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah,
have
that's
to,
right. A lot of it is about like your conscious mind always wants to be in control,
yeah.
but in a creative process that you can't completely be in control, because control is about predictability and creativity is the opposite of that. You
Mhm.
have to feel that, whatever the resistance is and whatever the fear is, but do it anyway.
Mm, this is so, so, so good. What is the most exciting thing that you've ever realized about your writing process?
I suppose a lot of what
Hmm.
I've just been talking about, but I think yeah, just it's such a magical process,
Hmm.
and it feels like being in that creative flow feels extremely magical. Um, and I think understanding that creativity is magic,
Hmm.
but kind of understanding that so many things are magical, and we just as beings that are supposed to be very serious and rational and scientific, we actually like try to avoid that. There's so much mystery all around us, and everything, all the matter that is around us is mostly empty space.
Mostly
We
empty.
have no, yeah, we have no idea what consciousness is. Even the greatest scientists, physicists, and so on have no idea what consciousness is. We don't even know if we're the only things that are, if animals are the only things that are conscious, or if
Dark
consciousness
dark
outside us.
matter. Yeah, and dark
There's
matter,
so
which is
much
is everything. We don't even know what that is or how it yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much mystery and all kinds of things. And so I think that's part of what's what I find really exciting about writing is the magic of it and being in the magic of it and how that kind of relates internally and externally and affects, has flow on effects in my other areas of my life too.
Which came first for you? Uh, the writing or the magic?
Magic.
Magic came first, so that when you, that's actually a great answer because then when you came to writing, you were able to gather and
Yeah,
harness the magic.
yeah. I was very kind of interested in magic from a very young age and identified as a witch from when I was about 14. Was just so fascinated by that. And I obviously did a little bit of creative writing when I was younger, but I was always one of those children who was out in the garden playing with the fairies and in my imaginary worlds. And when I came to writing and I was working on my first novel, I had this feeling like when I wasn't sure if I could do it, I had this feeling like there was some point in the future where the novel was written and I was just aligning myself with that future
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
pulling myself towards that. So I think it was always quite a magical approach.
I think that aligns with the way I look at it too, that I always believe that the book knows what it wants to be, and I
Mm.
can ask the book and I can work with the book in order to get it into alignment with what it is supposed to be. And it's never, again, it's never what I think it should be.
Yeah, and
And it's always
that's
better.
magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to have this sort of trust, this faith in the project. Otherwise, how will you ever bring it into being if you don't believe in it?
How
Yeah.
would you advise someone who's writing their first book who does not have that trust yet? How would you advise them to lean into that?
I think the trust is a choice. I think
I do too.
Yeah, I think on some level you have to trust yourself and you have to trust in your project and have some kind of faith, some kind of trust in life that you can do that and then continue to think about it in a way where you're not getting in your own way. Because I think
Hmm.
usually what people do is they go, "Oh, I really want to write something," and it's often attached to other things like, what is your why for writing it in the first place? It's really good to excavate that a little bit and figure out what is there because there will often be resistance in that because a lot of times people want to write because they do want recognition, but they don't necessarily want to own that. And they're also terrified of other people's judgment. And if you can kind of process some of those tensions, and it can be terrifying, my first experiences of publishing, I was coming up against all this shame
Hmm.
this potential humiliation. What if I say something wrong? What if I get cancelled? What I should just go and hide under a rock now and save myself the time later. I spent
For real. Yes.
years struggling with that,
Yeah.
and it was so visceral. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a psychologist, and she said, "Of course you feel like that because human beings evolved in these really small, tight-knit communities
Hmm.
where our survival was so linked with everyone approving and being on the same page. And to do something different, to take a risk like that, to risk humiliation, your brain is producing death emotions. So, shame is, I'm going to die. That's why it feels so bad.
Hmm.
And you're not actually going to die now. It's
Yeah.
not really a risk. So being able to kind of um, be be kind of open to going through that hard emotion. And the best way I find for dealing with those hard emotions is with radical acceptance and just
Mm.
openness, because then you can kind of surrender to, the root word for humiliation is humus, like
Humus,
soil.
earth, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
dirt.
it's to surrender to the earth. It's a being brought down to earth. And that is quite a beautiful way of relating to those emotions. It's a little
Love
death.
that.
It's a little letting go,
Mhm.
like the trees in autumn let go their leaves and surrender. And then that is composted into new life because that is a part of death is a part of life. And so that's the best way I know to deal with those death emotions is to surrender to them, surrender to that little ego death of the
Mhm.
fear that somebody might judge me. And it can feel beautiful if you can be open to that, which is sounds strange, but
It sounds strange and wonderful and so true. And it is, when we lived in those small communities of usually they say no more than 100 people, we would know 100 people our whole lives. And if one person did shame you or judge you, you could be pushed out of the village and then you would actually die. Like you said, that is
Yeah,
literally what would happen. And that's why we as humans fear that judgment so much. But we have more than
absolutely.
100 people in our Facebook groups, and somebody could say something and we feel like we're going to die. I love what you said about this radical acceptance too. And if people are thinking like, well, how do I do these things? There's a beautiful book by Tara Brach called
Yes,
Radical
yeah,
Acceptance. It's life-changing.
it's a beautiful
I
book.
I reread that one every once in a while because I need to remember that radical acceptance is usually the gosh darn answer, and I don't love it. So personally, what part of writing do you struggle with the most?
Um, I struggle when I have to sit still because I
Yeah.
prefer to be walking and I can't edit while walking.
Yeah.
So I find different ways of getting around that and or just kind of that sometimes it's that the sort of facing the hard work, the routine, sort of Saturnian stuff
Yeah.
of going, okay, I have to do this edit. I'm going to do a little bit every day. And what I tend to do is go for a walk to a quiet cafe so that I don't distract myself by doing other things. And I'll just sit there for a while, not put too much pressure on myself because that doesn't help. But yeah, that stuff is the hardest. It's the stuff that feels more nitpicky. Sometimes editing can be really beautiful and creative, but it's definitely not as fun as being like in the flow.
And I love that you give yourself a place to go with a reward, because when we go to a cafe, we get a lovely something to eat or drink as well, and then we're getting kind of paid for doing that work. Fant Fantastic. Can you share a craft tip or two that you have found to be useful in your own writing?
What kind of craft tip are you after?
Any kind. It could be mindset, it could be character, world building, uh, just how to get to the desk, anything at all.
Craft tip. Yeah, I think my main craft tip is to get really familiar with your intuition.
Ooh, tell us more, please. That's exactly what I want to hear.
Well, I think there's this sort of intuitive knowing inside you, and often other things get in the way. So our rational mind is getting in the way, and our fears and our anxieties and various tensions are getting in the way. And often when I'm not sure about what to do with a project or how to develop something in the story or what is going on with this character, instead of thinking around in circles about it, I sort of check in with my intuition and kind of go, what do I need? Like, it's sort of like, what kind of food am I really craving? But it's like,
Hmm.
what is it that's sort of like kind of connecting, and it's like a body connection. It's a somatic thing because our bodies are so much more in tune with the I don't know, kind of subtle levels of things, whereas our minds get quite all over the place with our various different stories that we're
Yeah.
telling. And sometimes the stories that we tell are like getting in the way of what we're actually wanting. Yeah.
So can we go specific on this because I'm so fascinated. So say you are writing a scene and the characters have just had a confrontation. Two people have had a confrontation and they're at a crossroads conflict-wise, and say you suddenly feel frustrated because you don't know where to go next with this scene. Can you talk me through the specifics of what you would actually do? Would you sit? Would you close your eyes? Would you put your hand on your chest? What happens then?
Yeah, I might sit or I might actually go for a walk because
Mm-hmm.
being in movement is quite good.
Hmm.
I think walking stimulates your vagus nerve, which has that more relaxing effect on your body, so helping to kind of and I find being in wide open spaces, like walking by the sea, really, really helpful. 'Cause it's sort of like, internal, external reflection, your mind feels more wide open. And as I'm walking, sometimes I'll listen to just really calming music that embracing the void
The
type
void.
stuff. And I'll kind of, I will often put my hand here or on my belly or sometimes both and just take deep, slow breaths and just kind of tune into there's like a sense that's below the noise.
Hmm.
And it sort of has a resonance to it, a sort of hum to it,
Hmm.
and tune into that and um, and listen, sort of listen to what is it that is needed. And sometimes it takes a little while to figure out. Sometimes what is needed is to rest,
Yeah. Yeah.
which can be frustrating. She's like, I'm trying to make progress here. And it's like, oh, I need to rest. And yeah, quite often there'll be some sort of message. It might be eat more broccoli.
And I realize that I'm scrambling to hold all of these, questions and everything that you're answering in my mind. I'm thinking very, very hard about it, which is exactly what we're not doing in that space. You're really listening to the physical sensations. So
Because you feel it when you know that you're on the right track. When
yes.
you get an idea and you're like, that's how I'm going to solve that problem.
Yep.
You feel that intuitive yes. So it's like listening to where that intuition is so you can find that yes.
Listening to find the yes and also remembering that the yes may take you away from the page and to do something else that you don't want. Um, oh my gosh, I feel like you should write a book about writing.
That might be the next one. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. 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 You'll have to come back on the show when that happens.
There is a
Okay.
lot of related stuff in my magic book as well. Not
I'm
not
sure
quite
there
so
is. Yeah.
specific to writing, but yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. What is the kindest thing you've ever done for yourself as a writer?
Mm. Oh, I think the kindest thing that I've ever done for myself is actually to figure out how to work with structure because
Mhm.
by nature I'm not a very structured person. I like the chaos. I like creativity and fun, and having structure imposed on me was always so hard. And so figuring out how to work with structure and then kind of implementing that
Mm,
really helped me to become a full-time writer. Being able to trust myself that if I had the time, I could utilize it. Because a lot of people think, oh, if only I had the time, then I would write. And then they have the time, but they don't have the infrastructure
yes. Yes.
they don't know how to use that time. And a lot of that is for me is like being quite gentle with myself, showing up and having a kind of a ritual to the day or routine, um, having but like kind of facing the difficult emotions too and pushing through if I'm feeling like um, and I'm not a write every day kind of person, but
Mhm.
if I feel like um, I am stuck with something, sometimes there is a resistance to push through and show up and face that feeling.
So you're really talking about holding all of it lightly, but with intention. So
Yeah,
you won't
yeah,
always follow uh, resistance right to the bed. You might follow resistance through the difficulty and stay at the desk and stay with what you're doing because you're thinking and feeling carefully about what's arising. Is that correct?
yeah. I mean, sometimes people are avoiding any of the hard stuff, and then
Yeah.
it's to
S-
be productive.
Yeah.
It's sort of a balance of, and if you have the frustration and the tension, how do you work with those tensions, which is what I call Saturn work, because Saturn is the planet of like hard learning and discipline and that kind of thing. So sometimes, especially if I'm feeling a lot of tension, it's like, how do I kind of grab that tension like reins so I'm utilizing it? And that might be um, going for more walks.
I'm gonna throw you another out of the blue question here that you're in no way prepared for. But some people like myself and maybe some students that I know, we err on the other side where we are comfortable with pain and tension and pick up the reins and try to go harder to the detriment. where we miss the signs that say you've gone past the capability today. You've gone
Mm.
past ability to think or feel. What would you advise a person like that in maybe following their intuition a bit more?
Yeah, I think it's really good to check in with yourself and the same sort of process that I was talking about earlier, because otherwise you can really easily burn out if you are pushing yourself
And do
too
you
far.
mean check in with the body sensations?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I love that and it's so helpful and I don't know how I will try to remember to do that. But I forget I'm one of those people who forgets I have a body. There is no body. I shut
Mm.
it off and that's why I have chronic health issues. I know because I'm all up here and there's no body. So
Mm.
remembering to check in is maybe a really good tip. Maybe I could just set an
Yeah.
alarm to do that a few times a day.
Yeah, like something to remind you is a good idea, because you might find that when you do check in, you're able to look after yourself better. What is it that I really, really need right now? If you give yourself that, you'll be in a far better position to be more productive because you'll be
Mm.
in a better state of mind.
It sounds like a sweet fantasy, and I'm loving. I'm circling. What do I need? Thank you so much for that. And we got there by you talking about being kind to yourself. Can you please tell us about a specific moment in your life that you knew you had ink in your veins?
Okay, I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I was in total immersion Māori language schooling,
Mhm.
so I didn't actually know how to read or write in English, and I had this sudden urge that I felt like I needed to create something, and I needed to write something, and it was a song, and I wrote a song in Māori because I couldn't write in English until I was about 8 or 9.
Wow.
It was really hard for me to learn to read and write in English,
Oh my
because
goodness.
English is not phonetic and Māori is phonetic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, yeah, I wrote a song, and it was about the earth and the sky god and Māori mythology and their love, and it was,
Oh, that's beautiful. And it actually reflects everything that you've been saying. You felt moved inside yourself to be creative, and then you followed that urge, and you were also connected to the natural world at the same time. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh my God. And I'm not surprised by any part of it. Amazing. Thank you. What is the best book that you've read recently? And why did you love it?
I've been rereading one of my favorite books, and this is a testament to the book because I never reread books because I retain them pretty well.
Mhm.
But this A Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert.
I've only read that once and I would like to reread that too. How
Oh,
have you been
it's
finding it on the reread?
Well, I've reread it about 10 times
Wow.
because every time over the years, every time I encounter it in a different stage, in a different stage of my writing career, facing different things. And
Mm.
every time it is so useful. And it is about magic, but it's about the
Hmm.
magic of creativity, which is what we've been talking about.
Hmm.
And it's whimsical and wonderful and so light, and
Mm.
it's very liberating, and it's sort of challenging in really helpful ways for you to kind of um and a lot of I've learned a lot about my own creative process in recent years from that book, and intuitively working with similar sorts of themes.
Did you ever listen to that? She had a short limited podcast run called Magic Lessons when that book came out.
Yeah, I
It was
did.
delightful. I wish she would do that one again. That would just like a little re-up of that. That would be so good. Thank you. And would
Hmm.
you please tell us about your most recent book that you would like people to run out and grab and read, or an entry into one of your series, whatever you would like?
Um, well, I mean, probably more relevant to this conversation is Awakening the Wild Witch, which is coming out at the end of April. And it is on
Oh.
pre-order because that is, very relevant to a lot of the magical themes that I've
Well,
been
you know
talking
what?
about.
I'm just making an executive decision right now. I will release this podcast the week the book comes out. So by the time that people are listening, Awakening the Wild Witch is available to read right now. Will you please tell us a little bit about that book, which I cannot wait to read. I'm going to go pre-order
Sure.
immediately.
Yeah. So it's a book about my approach to magic through my I've been fascinated with magic my whole life, and it goes into things like kitchen witchery and astrology and the sort of reflective nature of the universe, the sort of inner and outer reflections. It goes quite a lot into Jungian shadow work and sort of how do we connect with nature intuitively and with ourselves and with our will and make our lives more magical.
I can't wait to read that. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Where can we find you out there online?
My website's irisbeaglehole.com, um, and that's my at for all the social
Everything.
medias. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Iris, thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show. This has been an absolute delight, as I knew it would be.
Thank you, Rachel. Lovely to see you.